8. Alicia Mary Garvin. In October 2020, a 29-year-old Ohio woman named Alicia Mary Garvin was accused of pulling the fire alarms, running through the hallways naked, and otherwise wreaking havoc at a hotel in Sweetwater, Tennessee. But her reasons for doing so are unclear. Officer Brandon Kanzler told local news outlet Advocate and Democrat that he was called to the Oyo Motel, where the fire alarms were ringing when he arrived. He said that the front desk clerk told him that Garvin was knocking on guests' doors and asking strangers if they wanted to be intimate with her. The employee also claimed that they repeatedly told Garvin to leave, but that she refused. According to Officer Kanzler, the young woman was coming out of the lobby when he arrived at the hotel. He didn't specify whether or not she'd put her clothes back on, but said that she was yelling nonsensically. And when he asked her why she pulled the fire alarms, Garvin allegedly claimed that she thought she was about to be attacked. She also thought she was at a gas station rather than a hotel. In his report, Officer Kanzler noted that Garvin's pupils seemed dilated and that she was acting paranoid. It also didn't help that she was unable to stand still. In the end, Garvin was charged with public intoxication, trespassing, and filing a false report. But unfortunately, the outcome of the case is unclear. 7. Carly Russell. In a strange case that's only gotten more bizarre as more details come to light, a 25-year-old nursing student named Carly Russell is being accused of staging a kidnapping hoax. It all began in mid-July of 2023, when the young woman called 911 and claimed that she found a toddler stranded along an Alabama interstate. She then called a family member and vanished into thin air for the next 2 days. But 48 hours later, Russell reappeared at her parents' door. She allegedly told investigators that a mystery man had abducted her. Russell also claimed that she was kept in a trailer of a truck with a man and a woman, and that her abductors fed her cheese crackers and took photos of her. But detectives failed to find any evidence of a toddler going missing along the highway, despite numerous cars passing through the area at the time Russell's initial 911 call was placed. Furthermore, a search of the young woman's devices turned up Google searches from before the alleged kidnapping for terms like Amber Alerts and how to take money from a register without getting caught. In the end, Russell admitted that the kidnapping was a hoax and apologized to the community. She now faces 2 misdemeanor charges for falsely reporting, which can each carry a punishment of up to a year in prison. Her ex-boyfriend, Tomar Latrell Simmons, came forward several months after the ordeal and told news outlets that he doesn't know why Russell allegedly faked her disappearance. He said that the couple had a little argument before the incident, but nothing that someone would make themselves disappear over. Hopefully in the coming months, more details will come to light as the case unfolds. 6. Margaret Frances Elizabeth Sweeney. In August 2023, a 37-year-old North Carolina woman named Margaret Frances Maggie Elizabeth Sweeney was accused of faking her own murder. According to law enforcement, the bizarre case began to unfold when Sweeney anonymously contacted a friend and a social services employee and falsely claimed that she'd been bludgeoned to death with a tire iron. She was then reported as missing to the police. But Sweeney appeared to be alive and well when the authorities located her in a nearby town the next day, after officers spent an estimated 75 hours searching for her and investigating the case. In a Facebook post, the Franklin Police Department condemned the woman for allegedly distracting officers from other matters that could have used their attention. Franklin Police Chief Devin Holland told NBC News that Sweeney was found at a park and that she claimed she didn't have a consistent place to live at the time of the strange incident. In addition to squandering valuable police resources, Holland said that the woman caused her friends, family, and the community to fear for her safety. Sweeney was charged with causing a false report to a police station, falsely reporting death or serious injury by telephonic communication, and obstructing law enforcement officers. She was released on her own recognizance after promising to return to court at a later date, so currently the case is ongoing. and her reasons for allegedly faking her murder are unclear. 5. Zachariah Peterson. Around 2,200 employees at an automotive assembly plant in Clay Como, Michigan, were faced with a terrifying situation in July 2023 when they were forced to evacuate their workplace on a moment's notice due to a bomb threat. According to Clay County investigators, 19-year-old Zachariah Peterson made the call, claiming that he was armed with an AK-47 and a handgun. He also said that he had a pound of C4 explosives strapped to his chest. Numerous law enforcement agencies responded to a call at the 6 million square foot plant. They spent the next 6 hours thoroughly searching the facility before determining that the threat was a hoax. Clay County Sheriff Will Aiken later told news reporters that the agency had reason to believe that the threat wasn't real, but that they had to treat it like it was, just in case. After all, it's better to be safe than sorry. Thankfully, though, nobody was injured during the ordeal. Prosecutors claim that Peterson called in the threat during the early evening for the specific purpose of prompting an evacuation, and he did this so that an acquaintance of his wouldn't have to go to work that day. For all intents and purposes, it worked. After being evacuated, the employees were sent home and the night shift was canceled. But the favor for a friend is coming at a high price for Peterson, who was charged with 1 felony count of making a terrorist threat. If convicted, he could face up to 7 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. 4. Audrey Sailor. During the early morning hours one Saturday in March 2004, a 20-year-old college student named Audrey Sailor vanished in Madison, Wisconsin. Fearing the worst, her family, friends, and the community came together and immediately began searching the area in hopes of finding her safe. 4 days later, Sailor was found in a marshy area roughly 2 miles from her university's campus. The young woman was physically unharmed, but seemed emotionally shaken. She told police that she'd been abducted at knife point by a stranger, who she described as a young white man that stood about 6 feet tall and dressed in all black. Sailor also claimed that her captor didn't hurt her, but that he held her against her will. A doctor who treated her after she was found noticed that she was doing remarkably well considering the circumstances, and that may have been because Sailor wasn't really abducted. After failing to find a suspect matching the description she gave, police began looking at Sailor herself as a person of interest. They soon discovered surveillance footage of her buying a knife, duct tape, rope, and other items that were found scattered alongside her in the marsh where she was rescued. A search of Sailor's Google history showed that she'd recently researched maps of local wooded areas and extended weather forecasts. And she was captured on video leaving her apartment building alone on the morning she vanished. Authorities became even more suspicious of Sailor when a civilian came forward and said that he'd seen her in the marsh several days before she was found, and that she seemed completely fine. Sailor was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of obstructing justice. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay local law enforcement $250 per month during her probationary period. This was to compensate the police for the tens of thousands of dollars in resources that they squandered on the investigation and manhunt. Until then, Sailor was a model citizen, a star student, and a well-liked member of her community. She blamed her depression for her irrational behavior and received a surprising amount of forgiveness from locals, who seemed willing to overlook the hoax due to her squeaky clean history and her mental health struggles. 3. Jennifer Wilbanks. A Georgia woman named Jennifer Wilbanks became a real-life runaway bride in April 2005 when she disappeared 3 days before she was due to marry her fiancé, John Mason. The couple planned to exchange their vows in front of 600 guests and 28 bridal party members in a ceremony outside Atlanta. But their plans were put on hold when Wilbanks failed to return home from a jog, sparking a nationwide search and equally widespread media coverage. 3 days later, Wilbanks called Mason from a payphone in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and claimed that a Hispanic man and a white woman had kidnapped and assaulted her. She said that her captors had just released her, and she claimed that she didn't know where she was. By then, the FBI had gotten involved in the case, and it wasn't long before Wilbanks admitted during questioning that she'd lied about being abducted. She'd apparently experienced an extreme case of pre-wedding jitters and wanted to escape the pressures of the upcoming event. Wilbanks confessed that she'd taken a taxi to a Greyhound bus station, where she took a bus to Las Vegas and then to Albuquerque. It's not against the law for someone to get cold feet before their wedding, but authorities felt that Wilbanks had mishandled her anxiety on a criminal level. She was arrested in connection with the hoax, and she and Mason broke up shortly thereafter. The former couple also sued each other, but they both ended up dropping their cases. Wilbanks pleaded guilty to one felony count of making a false statement and was sentenced to 2 years of probation. She was also ordered to perform community service and undergo mental health treatment, and she was required to pay back nearly $16,000 that local law enforcement had spent searching for her and investigating her case. In 2008, news outlets reported that John Mason had married a woman named Shelley Martin. His father told People magazine that the couple exchanged vows in a quiet ceremony at the Masons' home, making for a much different turnout than the large and extravagant wedding that Mason and Wilbanks had planned for themselves 3 years earlier. Wilbanks also met a new man named Greg Hudson. They eventually got engaged, and this time she didn't panic and run away. The couple tied the knot in 2010 and divorced in 2021 after 11 years of marriage. 2. The TLT River Dam. Owned and operated by the city of Seattle, the TLT River Reservoir and dams are located 16 miles north of Carnation, Washington. And as the source of 30% of Seattle's drinking water, it's an important fixture of the area's infrastructure. But there have been some issues recently, with false alarms causing repeated evacuations of Carnation's population. If the TLT River Dam broke, it would most likely send a huge wave of water crashing through the Snoqualmie Valley, where Carnation is located. In fact, a breach of the dam would have the potential to wipe out the entire city with terrifying speed and force. Residents of Carnation have been conducting practice drills for decades, so that they're prepared in case they ever need to get to higher ground. People are used to doing these practice exercises, but the prospect of a real emergency is a relatively new occurrence. Since 2021, there have been at least 4 false alarms, and it's caused major concern among residents. People aren't only worried that there could be a real emergency, they fear that the city's population will become complacent to the alarms and fail to evacuate properly in the event of an actual disaster. And now there's reason to worry that the public officials in charge of operating the dam are also becoming nonchalant about the matter. After the most recent false alarm in August 2023, the city failed to give an all-clear signal afterward. Deputy Mayor Tim Harris blamed the ongoing malfunctions on the early warning system being outdated, and he called on Seattle to get the problem under control. It should have been fixed years ago, according to Carnation Mayor Jim Rybale, who spoke with local station KIRO 7 after the latest incident. Not only are these repeated false alarms inconvenient, they've left residents feeling traumatized. And who can blame them for feeling that way? Anyone would likely be on edge if they had to evacuate their home and city over and over because it might be just minutes or seconds away from being flooded with water. 1. Holly Arond. Over a 4-month period starting in October 2022, a Green Bay, Wisconsin woman named Holly Arond allegedly made multiple false 911 calls to a specific residence. According to a criminal complaint, Arond gave a fake name during the first phony call she made. And throughout most of the bogus reports, she allegedly claimed that a man and a woman were fighting. She also complained about drug and weapon-related crimes. Authorities are accusing Arond of making at least 17 false emergency calls. Investigators narrowed in on her as their prime suspect after it became apparent that there was a pattern of fake reports. The address that Arond called police to apparently belongs to her ex-boyfriend and his current partner. So naturally, police believe that the couple were targeted. False 911 calls are more than mere inconveniences to dispatchers and law enforcement. They drain resources that are needed for real situations, and could even distract police to the point of putting someone who's having a legitimate emergency in serious danger. After all, cops and emergency responders can only be in so many places at once. Arond faces 3 felony charges of false reporting an emergency and 17 misdemeanor counts of false emergency 911 calls. If convicted of the felonies, she could face up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000 for each count. Every misdemeanor count could carry a sentence of 30 days in jail and a fine of up to $500. Would you have an easier time forgiving a friend or family member who faked a pregnancy, or someone who falsely claimed to have a potentially life-threatening illness? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.